47 years ago, people stood in lines around the block just to see a movie. Then the lights went down, that music hit, and everything changed. Star Wars didn't just create heroes, it turned its cast into legends overnight. But behind the lightsabers, the masks, and the fame, those lives went in directions no one saw coming. One became a recluse, one nearly died, one walked away from Hollywood entirely. So what really happened to the cast of Star Wars 47 years later?
I'm going to regret this.
We cover the real stories behind the casts that shaped your childhood. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill was 24 when he first squinted into Tatooine's twin sons, young enough to believe in the role completely, unknown enough that audiences had no reason to doubt him. He played hope without irony, almost defiant about it. George Lucas screen-tested dozens of actors and never found that quality in anyone else. In 2026, Hamill is 74 years old and still one of the most recognizable voices in entertainment. Before Star Wars, he was grinding through guest spots on The Bill Cosby Show and General Hospital, the invisible years most actors want to forget. He nearly missed the film entirely. A car accident in January 1977, weeks before reshoots, left him needing facial reconstruction surgery. The franchise almost had a different Luke Skywalker. After the trilogy, typecasting arrived fast. Hollywood had no idea what to do with Luke Skywalker's face, and for a stretch, neither did he. But Hamill made a quietly brilliant move. He left live-action leads behind and rebuilt himself entirely in voice acting. Over 30 years, he became the definitive Joker across Batman the Animated Series and dozens of productions after it, a second career as respected as his first. He returned to Star Wars in 2015 and carried the saga's full emotional weight with more grace than most actors half his age could have managed. Luke Skywalker carried the hope of a galaxy, but Mark Hamill carried something rarer, the willingness to reinvent himself completely, twice, and pull it off both times. Harrison Ford as Han Solo. He was installing a door, not metaphorically. Harrison Ford, future Han Solo, future Indiana Jones, was working as a carpenter on the Goldwyn lot when George Lucas's team brought him in to read lines opposite actors auditioning for the film. He was 33, he had a family to feed, and the industry had given him very little reason to stay in it. He took the audition on a lark. In 2026, Harrison Ford is 83 and still, improbably, one of the most bankable names in film. Before the carpentry, there were years of bit parts that went nowhere, including a small role in American Graffiti, also directed by Lucas, which kept him in the director's orbit just long enough to matter. But what got him Han Solo wasn't the resume, it was the swagger he walked in with. Casual, slightly contemptuous, the energy of a man with nothing left to prove and nowhere left to fall. After Star Wars, he never stopped working and never got comfortable. He married screenwriter Melissa Matheson in 1983, later married Callista Flockhart, and found in that second chapter a steadiness the film sets rarely gave him. He came back as Han Solo in The Force Awakens in 2015, and what that film chose to do with his return still catches people off guard when they sit with it. Han Solo always said he had a bad feeling about this, but Harrison Ford turned every bad feeling into something worth watching. Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia. She walked into that film at 19, white dress, hair pinned into two perfect buns, and she was immediately the most capable person in every room the camera put her in. Princess Leia wasn't waiting to be rescued. Neither, it turned out, was Carrie Fisher. Sadly, Carrie Fisher died on December 27, 2016. She was 60 years old. A cardiac arrest struck during a transatlantic flight 4 days earlier, and she never regained consciousness. Before Star Wars, she was already navigating a life more complicated than most teenagers ever face. Her mother was Debbie Reynolds. Her father was Eddie Fisher. She grew up inside Hollywood royalty and inside every fracture that came with it. She studied at the London Central School of Speech and Drama and made her film debut in Shampoo at 18, just 1 year before Lucas came calling. After the trilogy, she fought battles that had nothing to do with the Empire. Addiction, bipolar disorder, a memoir, Postcards from the Edge, so honest it made people laugh while it quietly broke their hearts. She didn't just survive those things. She wrote about them, performed them on stage, and turned her own wreckage into something that helped others feel less alone in theirs. She raised a daughter, Billie Lourd, who stood beside her in The Force Awakens. She filmed her Last Jedi scenes in 2016, just months before her death, and watching those final moments now, knowing what came so soon after, carries a weight no one anticipated when the cameras were rolling. Leia was a princess who refused to behave like one, and Carrie Fisher was a woman who refused to let any of it become the whole story.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
We're only halfway through this cast, and honestly, the wildest stories are still ahead. If you don't want to miss videos like this, hit subscribe. It takes 1 second. Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Start with what he actually thought. In a private letter to a friend, Alec Guinness called the Star Wars dialogue fairy tale rubbish. He found the set exhausting, the science fiction world beneath him, and the experience, honestly, not what he'd envisioned for the final chapter of a career that included Lawrence of Arabia and The Bridge on the River Kwai. He was 62 years old, had a knighthood, and had already won a competitive Oscar for The Bridge on the River Kwai. And now, he was being asked to wave a glowing stick around in a desert. Alec Guinness left us on August 5, 2000, at 86, from liver cancer. Before Star Wars, he was simply one of the finest actors Britain ever produced, trained at the Fay Compton studio, shaped by the Old Vic, and built into a legend through David Lean's greatest films. 8 Oscar nominations across his career. He didn't need Star Wars, not even slightly. Here is the part that reframes everything. Before signing on, Guinness negotiated 2% of the film's gross ancillary profits. In 1977, that seemed a reasonable hedge on a project nobody expected to work. What it became was millions of pounds a year, every year for the rest of his life. He found it embarrassing, and never discussed it publicly. Decades after his death, Lucasfilm resurrected his voice and likeness digitally in ways he never imagined or agreed to. Obi-Wan Kenobi became one with the Force, and Alec Guinness, the man who wanted nothing to do with any of it, became the one Star Wars never truly let go of. David Prowse as Darth Vader. 6 feet 6 inches of former British weightlifting champion, stepped into the black armor at 40 and built Darth Vader's physical language from nothing. The slow turn, the extended arm, the absolute stillness before violence. There was no blueprint for this. Nobody had played anything quite like it before. David Prowse invented it, one frame at a time, on a soundstage in England and a desert in Tunisia. What the production gave him in return was considerably less. George Lucas deliberately fed Prowse false script pages throughout filming to prevent leaks. He delivered his lines on set while crew members suppressed smiles. He found out his voice had been entirely replaced by James Earl Jones when he sat in a public cinema in 1977 and watched the finished film alongside everyone else. That was how he found out. Prowse was gone at 85 on November 28, 2020, from complications related to COVID-19. Before Star Wars, he had worked as a bodybuilder turned actor, with credits including A Clockwork Orange, and had spent years as the UK's beloved Green Cross Code Man, a road safety mascot teaching British children how to cross the street safely. He had also trained Christopher Reeve for Superman. The man inside the most feared costume in cinema history had spent years helping kids get home safe. Darth Vader moved through the galaxy like a force of nature, but the man who built that walk never received the recognition that performance deserved. James Earl Jones, Darth Vader. He walked into a recording studio, sat down in front of a microphone in a plain room with no costume and no set, and in a matter of hours, created one of the most recognizable sounds in the history of cinema.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on an immersive mission this time.
No rehearsal, no warm-up. James Earl Jones simply knew what Darth Vader needed to sound like. Low, measured, patient in a way that made argument feel pointless, and he delivered it. James Earl Jones passed from this world on September 9, 2024, at 93 years old. Before Star Wars, his stage work had already made him a giant. He originated the role of Jack Jefferson in The Great White Hope, which earned him a Tony Award in 1969. He had appeared in Dr. Strangelove. His voice was already a known instrument, long before it became the sound of the dark side. After Star Wars, he never slowed down. Field of Dreams, Coming to America, The Lion King as Mufasa, a role that introduced his voice to an entirely new generation who had no idea they were also listening to Darth Vader. A career stretching across 7 decades without a single wasted year. An honorary Oscar in 2011, presented to a man who had been quietly deserving it for most of his professional life. The voice of Darth Vader frightened a generation, and James Earl Jones spent the rest of his life proving that same voice could carry extraordinary warmth. Anthony Daniels, C-3PO. He appeared in all 9 films of the Skywalker saga, every single one. Across 50 years, 6 directors, and a franchise that remade itself multiple times, Anthony Daniels showed up every time. The C-3PO suit made sitting impossible, eating on set impossible, and basic human functions a 30-minute operation involving real patience. He did it anyway, and he never once phoned in the performance inside that costume. In 2026, Daniels turns 80, the last surviving member of the original cast who wore a principal character costume throughout the entire run. Before The Golden Droid, he was a mime and theater actor with almost no film experience and zero interest in science fiction. Lucas sought him out personally. Daniels initially said no. Then Lucas showed him early concept art, sleek, almost elegant, and something shifted. That one yes became his entire professional life. Whatever friction existed off-camera between Daniels and the production, and his memoir, I Am C-3PO, is candid about the fact that there was plenty. It never once reached the screen. C-3PO's fussiness, his anxiety, his catastrophizing warmth. Daniels found that voice in 1976 and held it without wavering across 5 decades. C-3PO calculated the odds of survival in every crisis and always got them wrong. But Anthony Daniels said yes once to a role he almost turned down, and that single decision became a 50-year life's work. Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, the gentlest giant in the galaxy, was discovered in a hospital. Peter Mayhew was 7 feet 3 inches tall and working as a medical technician at King's College Hospital in London when a photograph of him reached George Lucas. The director needed someone who could fill a Wookiee suit and make Chewbacca feel like a living creature rather than a man in a costume. Mayhew was 32, had never acted professionally, and had no industry connections at all. Lucas flew him to Los Angeles and hired him, reportedly on the basis of the kindness he saw in the man's eyes. Peter Mayhew passed away on April 30th, 2019, at 74 years old from heart disease. Before Star Wars, his only acting credit was a brief appearance in Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, released in 1977, a role requiring primarily that he be very tall. After the trilogy, Mayhew settled in Texas and founded the Peter Mayhew Foundation, supporting disadvantaged children across the United States. He became, by every account from everyone who met him off-screen, one of the warmest human beings the Star Wars world produced. He returned as Chewbacca for The Force Awakens in 2015, sharing the role with Jonas Suotamo as his health declined. And the acknowledgement from that production of everything he had given the character across 4 decades felt genuinely earned. Chewbacca never spoke a word anyone could understand, but Peter Mayhew said everything through 40 years of showing up for the people who loved that character. Kenny Baker as R2-D2. For the entirety of filming, he sat inside a barrel, not an exaggeration. R2-D2's dome was 27 inches across. Kenny Baker was 3 feet 8 inches tall, and he climbed inside that shell for every scene requiring the droid to move with any personality at all. He rocked it from within. He tilted it. He gave R2-D2 its soul, the indignation, the loyalty, the stubborn bravery. Entirely through body movement, the camera caught only as vibration and tilt. The audience felt it as character. Most never knew there was a man inside making it happen. The production reflected that invisibility in practical terms. Baker was paid a fraction of what Anthony Daniels earned for the same film. His name sat in the end credits, in letters roughly the size of a footnote. The performance that gave the galaxy's most beloved droid its heartbeat was, by the industry's reckoning, barely worth acknowledging. That was a wrong that was never fully corrected. Kenny Baker died on August 13, 2016, at 81, from a chronic illness he had managed quietly for years. Before Star Wars, Baker had spent 2 decades in British vaudeville and variety, a world built on physical performance and split-second comic timing. That background gave R2-D2 something no remote control unit ever fully replaced. After the trilogy, he returned for the prequels, his physical role shrinking as technology advanced. He spoke about those years without bitterness. Given everything, that took real grace. R2-D2 was the beating heart of the rebellion, and Kenny Baker, folded into that dome in the dark, is the one who put it there. You just watched 47 years of triumph, loss, and everything in between. If you want more then and now stories like this, subscribe and drop a comment. Which cast member's story hit you the hardest? I read every single one.